Hello and welcome to the 2022 bullet journal setup. This is going to be my fourth yearly bullet journal setup, and for this year I'm using this Archer and Olive notebook that's actually from last year. I purchased two last year because I couldn't decide between the two, and so I used one last year, used one this year, which ended up working out really well because I liked this better than any of the ones on their website this year. It's this really pretty teal color, and I decided to go with the blue theme all throughout the beginning. I normally don't spend that much time on these beginning pages. I make them pretty simple, but honestly this time I went a little bit crazier, which I kind of like because I'm going to use them all year long and I refer back to them pretty much daily. So the first thing I did is work on this cover page. So I taped up the numbers for the title, so because I'm going to be using some paint and I didn't want the paint to get on the spot where the numbers are. You see, I do outline everything in pencil first. I usually do that just like sitting on the couch watching TV, watching a movie, something like that, just as like a nice chill and casual activity, and then I will come and do like all the fancy stuff later. So I'm just using actually a super cheap watercolor set from Michaels. It's one of those, it was like $5 I think. I do have nicer watercolors, but for this purposes I just thought it would be best to go with the cheapest option, and I am using this little like leaf motif all throughout the beginning. Now, if you are going to use watercolor in your bullet journal, just fair warning, you can only use a teeny tiny bit of water, because if you use too much water it will make your pages buckle. Mine actually did pretty well with this, and I used mostly paint, not a ton of water, so just FYI. For this I am just going through and making a stem and then adding leaves in all the different colors, and as I add the leaves you can see it kind of will mix all the different blues and greens together to make the leaves all mixed and melted, and that's exactly what I was going for with this particular theme, and I really enjoyed it. I ended up not making quite as many as I wanted to. Oh, and so that you know, the entire setup for all of these pages, and I have a lot of pages at the beginning, was 2 hours and 30 minutes, just so you know. I don't think that's that bad because I have a lot of pages, as you will see. I also did some extra little leaf paintings as I was waiting for that to dry, and these I did so that I could cut them out and tape them into my bullet journal throughout. That way I'm not dealing with waiting for a whole bunch of paint to dry. As I'm going through and making all the different spreads, I can just cut them out and stick them right there. So this is on actual watercolor paper this time, so I tried to make different sizes. I also did just like leaves over on the side, which, full disclosure, I did not end up using, but would have been cute, if I had decided to do them. I was going to just write straight onto the bullet journal paper, but I decided that I wanted to use this craft paper instead. This is from, I think it's called a Neapolitan craft paper, or Neapolitan bullet paper. I don't know. It's from Archer and Olive. There's a craft paper, white bullet journal paper, and then black bullet journal paper, and I love them for one, when I mess up it's really easy to just pull out a new paper and tape it in over the page that you messed up on, and two, for accent things. So I use a lot of the craft paper in this setup, which I thought was really fun. It's an easy way to add some pizzazz to a spread without it's taking too much effort, and then they do have the little bullet journal lines, which makes it really easy if you're writing things like this. So this little 2023 I just kind of penciled out beforehand. I did it originally on the page and then I added it here, and I'm just using Scotch double-sided tape for this. I've used a lot of glues and tapes and double-sided tapes and all sorts of like the fancy stuff, and let me tell you, this stuff worked better than any of that fancy bullet journal stuff has ever worked for me. So I am a convert. This is all I'm going to be doing from now on. So here's a look at the title spread, and that definitely was the longest taking spread of all. Next up, I am doing a key, and then I'm also going to be doing a year at a glance. The funny thing is, these are two pages I don't think I've ever had a year at a glance before, but I think I've had a key in a couple of bullet journals, and I have never once used it. And I didn't know that I was going to use the year at a glance either, but I thought I would do it just in case. And let me tell you, I have used these two pages so many times. They have been so helpful, even in just these past couple of weeks. So I'm really glad that I did them. I wasn't sure I was going to use them, but glad that I spent the time. For my year at a glance, I am using these little stamps. So they're little rubber stamps that go on a little acrylic block. That way you don't have like a whole bunch of blocks. They're just little, you know, rubber stamps. And so I'm doing that to add all of my yearly calendars, because I am not about to sit here and write all those things out, because your girl just is, I'm just not gonna do that. If you want to do that, you know, go for it, but I'm not gonna do that. Now, when you do this, you do have to be extra super careful not to mess up the numbers, and I think this is the first time I've ever not messed up the numbers in my bullet journal spread, so that was exciting. And the other thing is you have to be very careful not to smudge, because I do find that this gets kind of messy with the stamps and then you get stuff all over your fingers, so just FYI. I did find eraser took some of the smudges off, but not everything, so just be aware. I also had some eraser problems, like you can see this just smudged things everywhere. I ended up using some other erasers and I found a better one later on that worked much better, so that was a relief. On the grid spacing page on the left, or the key, or the whatever you're going to call it, it just shows where the different different ways to split up the paper, basically. So splitting the paper in half is this amount of boxes, splitting the paper in thirds is this amount of boxes, splitting the paper in fourth is this amount of boxes, and that just helps me to quickly be able to make a spread, because, you know, I'm always forgetting how many lines it is, and I usually just go for it freehand, and I usually am wrong. So this way, at least I have some frame of reference, and it makes it much easier. I don't have to sit there and count them all the time. And again, I've never used it before, but this year it has been really helpful, and I'm already I've already done my January setup and stuff like that, so I do, you know, think it worked out pretty well. For my writing, I just did some print with Tombow dual tip brush pens. I picked a couple of colors that I'm using all throughout the spread, and then I used just a black fine liner to do cursive on top. And that's just a really easy way to make it look a little bit fancier, because you've got two things instead of one. Next up, I'm doing my future log. So this is basically where you write down like things that are happening, and I am doing a Dutch door setup. So that just means I'm cutting out to the top so that it's like, you know, 4 pages, but, you know, they feel like they're all together, even though you do have to flip the page, if that makes sense. So like the header will be across both, and it just makes it a little bit easier to see that those two go together. I used the stamps again to put all of the dates so that I remember what day lands on which. Next up, I'm just adding a title to the top, and since I cut that little piece off the second page, this will go across all 4 pages of the spread, and so I just wrote future log, and I used another one of the dual tip brush pens. For the big titles, I'm using the brush tip side, and then for the small titles, I'm using just like the fine liner side on the other side, and I am using the same colors all throughout, so I'm doing the same, like alternating throughout the different colors here. I just picked blues and greens that I thought would work together so that we could have, you know, just a fun thing all throughout, and I do keep those consistent. That's one of the best ways to make your pages all kind of flow together, is to keep the same colors. So I added some finishing touches to that, and the purpose of the future log, by the way, is just so that I can write down like events that are coming. So like I have a wedding, I know I have a birthday party I'm going to in February, but I haven't made my February spread yet, and here you can see what I meant about the smudges. Be careful, your hands will get very dirty, FYI. I usually am really good and I'll go wash my hands, but I totally forgot this time. So basically just so that you can write out things that are happening later on in the year. I always go through, since I'm a teacher, with my school calendar and write all of those things in there, so I know what days we have off and what days are planning days and when we're, you know, starting and ending quarters and stuff like that. I also added the cursive up at the top so that all of the pages will kind of match, because I used the same fonts throughout the whole thing, which is another way to make things just look all nice and cohesive, is to have the fonts and the colors the same all throughout your whole area. I then drew a little leaf painting, and then I completely destroyed this leaf painting, so you'll see that I covered it up with some craft paper and just a black like fine liner drawing of the leaves instead, because I smudged it all over. Big mess. Disaster. I added the month titles, and you can see I'm being very careful now with trying not to smudge, and still got a smudge over there on the side, and just alternating through all the different colors that I picked for this setup. And then the future log was done. My next spread is my goals and intentions spread. So for this one, I kept things pretty simple. I cut out one of the little leaf paintings that I had done, and I decided I wanted that to go in the middle, so I ended up cutting it right down the middle so it was easy to tape in there with my double-sided tape. It's just like literally from Amazon, nothing fancy, but it's been working really, really well. And then I just added in all the boxes to figure out what I wanted. So on the left hand side, I'm writing in my goals for the year, and on the right hand side, I'm making a 5-year plan. This is something that I do every year, but I've never thought to like write it down officially. Usually I just do it like in my journal. And so every year I come up with like basically for the next 5 years, and just thinking out that far ahead and thinking like, okay, how old am I going to be? How much money do I want to make? Where do I want to be living? What do I want to be doing? Like, what do I want my life to look like? And having those questions might seem overwhelming, but it's actually really handy, because when I looked out 5 years, it told me a lot of things that I needed to know now. The other side is the really big goals. So those are things that I'm not necessarily going to complete this year, but things that I'm working towards in my life. This spread was actually the next day, and this is my goals and intentions spread. Sorry, I got that one wrong. So the left side is for my goals, the right side is for intentions. Intentions are more things like, you know, being on time more and doing, you know, things that are not like super specific, but I do want to include. I have a little quarterly plan over on the right, and then at the bottom is a money tracker, because my TPT friends will be very excited. I'm branching out into different marketplaces this year, and so I'm going to be selling my products on lots of different marketplaces, and I wanted to track which ones are selling each month so that I have a really good idea of what's happening. Over in the quarters, I'll also write a couple of things that I want to get done each quarter of the year to help me to figure out, you know, how I'm going to accomplish all of said goals. The next few pages are very, very simple. They're just going through different areas of my business and making content plans. So this is for blogs and YouTube. And so basically I just have a box for like my plan for the platform, and then I have a box for content ideas and a box for product ideas. And that's it, over and over. I didn't add any decorations to these pages. That's really all I got. Okay, on some of them I added little leaves. On the next page is my content calendar. So you can see I have some stuff written on the left hand page. I ended up covering that up completely with craft paper because I ran out of space. So in the middle, I already did this off camera because it took a really long time. I cut out a Dutch door situation, so I just cut like around the edges, and that way again it makes it all kind of one little spread. And I added calendars for each month, as well as what blog posts and videos are going out for the month for all of my content areas, all of my different platforms. And that just helps me to see at a glance, like this is January, this is February, all of those things. I added a title and I added craft paper at the back. I'm not sure what I'm doing with the back yet. I haven't added anything, but I went ahead and put it there just so it all kind of matched, and it made that little like Dutch door area really pop out that way, since it's now a different color. And then I added an envelope. This is just like literally an envelope from Walmart onto the left hand page, and this is gonna be for my blog post. So this is for specifically when I'm batching my blog posts. I will write down every blog post that I'm going to rewriting, and I can keep track of what has been written, what is ready to go, and it'll have like just my, you know, music teacher things all together. And that way it just is much easier for me in the writing phase, but I can also see things at a glance. The next page is all about money. The next two actually are going to be all about money. So this one is a tracker for things that I am paying off and things I am saving for. So I have a couple things that I'm paying off all or partially this year, and then I have some things that I'm saving for. So saving specifically for an emergency fund, and then saving money for retirement, and just keeping track of what all is going into those and how much progress I'm making, as well as the little bars for things that I'm paying off. So as I pay things off, I will color in how much has been paid off so that I always know like how much is left. And it's a really good visual way to see your progress, which is really, really handy if you have money goals. I also added a little check mark for student loans because they're almost gone. So I felt like I didn't need a whole thermometer for those. All right, now we're moving on to the next spread, which is also all about money, and this is the budget spread. So I am doing, again, a little Dutch door, just cutting off the top so that I can have all of these be together in my bullet journal. And this is a very simplified version of a budget. I'm going to add more later. I added a little bit of craft paper to make it, just consistent and to, just make life really easy. And I liked that on the other page, you could see really clearly where the Dutch door was because the craft paper was kind of like outlining it. So I wanted to create that same kind of thing again. So I just cut those off. If you don't have a paper cutter, you really need a paper cutter. These are like life-changing. So this actual spread is very, very simple. I just have the craft paper at the top with the title and then some little flower doodles in black. And then underneath that, I have just little boxes and I cut them in half. So every month has 2 boxes, 3 months per page. So each quarter is separated. And then I just write every month all my income on one box. So every bit of money that I have made from Teachers Pay Teachers, from my YouTube channels, from my Etsy shop, like from everything, because I have a lot of different income sources. And then on the right side, I write out the budget for the month that is, whatever I'm deciding where the money's going. And if you have online income, like things that fluctuate, I would highly recommend that you take the time to do that because it makes a big, huge difference. Yeah, just go for it. We can talk more about that in another video if you want to know more. The next page is a weight tracker. I've never done this one or this spread, but I am putting it in here. I do have some weight that I would like to lose this year, which I know is very cliche, but here we are anyway. So I put a little envelope for my habit trackers and a just little graph area. And then I added a little spot where I can put rewards as I hit certain milestones. I haven't decided what all my rewards are going to be, so if you have suggestions, leave them down below. So I picked 2 of my rewards for like milestones I'm hitting, and I need 2 more. Next page is one I used a lot this year and continue and plan to use a lot this coming year as well. And this is my home improvements page. So last year I did a lot of home improvements. This year I have even more on the docket, and so I keep track of those just in a little like house shape with different boxes so that I can kind of separate everything out by room. So I have some rooms that just need furniture and some rooms that need a lot more, and we're just trying to really make things customized and do all those things. You always talk about like, oh, we should do this, oh, we should do that, and so I just wanted to do all those things quickly, soon, so we can enjoy them, The next page is one of my favorites all time, and that is my book reading tracker. So I just drew some little like floating shelves, added some little books, and as I read a book, I will add it on there. So I like draw a little book, write the name, and then I will also color it in once I'm finished. And one thing I did last year is I color coded each month. So like January had a certain color, so I colored anything I finished in January in that color, and that was really fun also to be able to see like when I read the most, so you can kind of see things that way. If you're doing this, I encourage you to draw books in different shapes so that you just add a little bit of variety. This next page is just a couple of simple list areas. So I got a Cricut for Christmas, and so I have Cricut projects on one page, fun things to do on the other page, just, those things that aren't like goals or anything, but I just want to, go here, do that, like those kind of things. And then I also had a list of fun things to do at home because I'm trying to, watch a little bit less TV. And so I have just a list of like fun things I can do while I'm at home. This next page is all about vacations, and I kept it super simple. It's literally just a box. And as I have vacations, we can add in the details of when and where we're staying, and it's just like the simple things like places we want to go, just kind of as like a planning situation. I added a few more of these flowers to just make like nice and easy, and then that page was done, and we moved on to the next one. So this final spread that I'm going to show you is probably the most important, I would venture to say, of the whole bullet journal. This is my quarterly planning spread. So although I do make goals for the year, plans for the year, intentions for the year, I really focus mainly on quarterly planning. So that way I am looking at just 3 months instead of the entire year, because the whole year can be very overwhelming. And when you break it down into 3 months and 1 month, it's so much easier to conceptualize and make actual concrete plans. I know what I'm going to be doing in 3 months versus I don't know what I'm going to be doing in 12 months. So I added some craft paper and then some of the little leaf doodles that we have, counted up how many, or looked at my key, didn't count, to see how many squares I needed for my boxes. And on the right hand side, I am splitting the page into thirds, and that side is going to be for the months. So I'll have January, February, March, and I can write down like my goals and also the things I need to do in each of those months. Under the quarter one, I'm going to add my goals for the whole quarter and like main most important tasks, and then on the craft paper I'm adding like the smaller tasks that need to get done in order for those goals to be hit. So I use pretty much this exact same setup for every quarter, and it works very, very well. Although I really like the craft paper down the middle, I think it adds something special. Thank you for following along and watching, and please enjoy this little flip through now that you've made it all the way to the end, and have an excellent 2023. Bye.